the time I think they don't have the time because it's just too many patients and there's too much going on. And I think so there's two questions in here, like, do you feel like that happens, and have you seen it, have you experienced it? And also, like, you know, I don't feel that there is one pill that would fix everyone because we are so individual. Like, how do you see that as a pharmacist, you know?
It's a really good question. And I think that, I mean, even especially, I hate to bring up COVID again, but, you know, we've seen a highlight of the weakness in our healthcare system, especially in the UK with the NHS. Like, it's a very overwhelmed service. Having gone into hospital for the first time at the start of this year, I've been able to actually really see it, you know, firsthand, the amount of pressure that the doctors and the nurses are under. So there is definitely a case for the fact that there is such limited time that there's not always an opportunity to do like what me and you are doing with our sort of coaching sessions, is that long term, we spend like an hour with each other every time, and we just about cover what we want to, and then we follow up again in a month, and then again, like, that is probably what most people could do with, but it's not always something that's realistic. It's not always affordable for everybody. And there's also not always a provision of someone in that area that does that kind of service. So I think when it comes to doctors, you know, prescribing medication as sort of first line, big part of it is their own training. For the most part, from the doctors that I do know and that I work with, they really do want to do their best to help people. And it's just a case of there is such a vast amount of knowledge they have to understand in their medical degrees, and the amount of training, that there isn't a huge amount of highlights within nutrition or exercise. And that is starting to change. There's lifestyle medicine that's starting to come in more so, and more social prescribing. But it's been Can I
quickly interrupt you, because you were speaking with Janie, and I really don't know what it is. Like, what is that? What is social prescribing?
So social prescribing is something that I'm really passionate about, because it's something that I think I really want to get into practicing, and I think I already do in a way. Social prescribing is, rather than someone coming in, say, that's got high blood sugar levels or is a little bit overweight, and they're starting to feel that that's taking its toll on their health, or even someone who's, you know, very underweight and feeling like they're not getting enough nutrients into their body. There is not just the clinical interventions of speaking to dietitians or sometimes psychologists or cognitive behavioral therapy, but there's also signposting towards things like, in the UK, we have something called Park Run, which is 5-kilometer runs every Saturday, all run by volunteers. And you just show up there. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are to a point, what, you know, speed you run at, but it's a community activity that you can go to for free. And it gets you doing a short 5K with a really lovely group of people. So the signposting for social prescribing, it's basically directing people towards either personal training sessions with either a reduced or non-existent cost, which is really amazing for a lot of people. And for other people, it might be pointing them towards like a cookery class. And I know in our area, we've got like these really lovely healthy cooking classes that families can come to. And it might be about a little bit of just getting older people together to play bingo, a social activity, because actually socializing and having that feeling of connection has been proven to have effects on our immunity. So social prescribing is a way of basically prescribing what we should technically probably all be doing anyway. And I think in Scotland, they were prescribing like forest bathing, which is basically walking in the trees. Because actually it's not most people's priority. People have got bills to pay. They've got families, so many things to do, that actually going for a walk in the forest, probably not that important to them, because they're already, you know, fraying at the edges, burnt out. Actually, if a doctor says to you, I'm prescribing you this or this group exercise class, it can be really helpful. So that's like, in a nutshell, there's a lot to it, but that's kind of the brief overview of it.
Because I think that would you, as a pharmacist and knowing medicine a bit, like, would you have any idea? Because I'm always just baffled by, like, how is this not on a doctor's mind to ask about diet and exercise? Like, how on earth is it that we want to drug people and we don't want to give them the simple basic things that we know are good for us as a doctor? Like, is it because they're just so like, you know, in their heads with the science and the medicine and what we've learned? Like what's, I don't get it.
I think it's a complex system, and I don't think it's the same for every doctor. There is big differences between different practices, different GPs, different, you know, specialist doctors.
Yeah.
I think one of the big things is definitely time. There's such little time to make a difference, and that sometimes it can be tricky. The other thing is sometimes to do with patient motivation as well. Because I know when it comes to behavior change, there's a whole psychology around behavior change and how to really, you know, support people to make decisions, but moving away from you need to do this, you need to go to the gym 5 days a week and you need to eat healthy. Being really realistic with people. So
because that can be way too much for people, right? Like it's
exactly.
I liked as well in the interview you had with Janie, where Janie says like, yeah, that some people say like either go hard or don't do it at all. It's like, you know, of course you need to start somewhere, you know.
Totally. Yeah. And I think a big thing that also is starting to change a little bit, probably not at the rate it needs to, is the culture. Because actually the population, and I know a lot of people and like some really good friends that are very much, you know, if something's wrong, I take a pill. Like, I don't really want to go for a run or go to the gym or, you know, or maybe I don't necessarily want to change my diet because I'm really comfortable with what I eat. So there also has to be a sense of there's education and there's really supporting people and making the change, but also it's trying to make it easy for people. Like, why is the bad food so much cheaper than the good food?
Yeah. How does that work?
So there's a societal change that needs to happen to support people to make better choices. There needs to be more education in schooling about healthy foods and cooking and exercise at an early age, because yes, the doctors are part of it, but actually at the moment they are so overworked that it's probably they just want to try and see as many people as they can within their day so that they don't have these crazy waiting lists. And that's where I think what you're doing by undertaking this diploma, and a lot of people that are now starting with community projects, this is where people need to really be encouraged to take their health into their own hands. And like you said, be encouraged, be taught about nutrition and exercise, because actually doctors have got so much on their plate with understanding all the billion diagnoses that are out there. It's so complex, keeping all of that in their head, that they might not necessarily be an exercise specialist or a nutrition specialist. But what I'm hoping to see more of is more community projects they can signpost people towards and say, I don't not know it all and I might not have time, but go see this lovely person and they'll be able to support. So absolutely. Fully answers the question, but I do think
no, you did definitely. I think that's because, for example, you know, and I also am really curious how you feel about this. Like, I think there are some, like, I as you know, I'm a vegan activist, and there's also, you know, a good friend of mine, Keegan. He's just about, I don't know if it's already released, but there's a movie also called "They Are Killing Us," which is a really interesting movie about, you know, there's specific also groups of people and where they are living, where, you know, people can only have access to really crappy food. And you would nearly think there's a corrupt system going on of like, and I think that if you look at people like John Joseph, who's also a vegan activist who I follow, and he's also saying like, yeah, America's corrupt. Like, we want people to be sick so that the pharmacy and, you know, those guys make a lot of money, you know, like, so it's also that sort of feeling of like, yeah, because at the end of the day, let's just keep people sick so we can give them a lot of drugs and make a lot of money. Like, what is your feeling towards that? Because I think it exists, right? Like, we are trying to keep people sick just so we can make money out of it.
I think there may be, I do think there is, you know, big pharma has a bad reputation, I think, for a reason. There's definitely, it's a very interesting one. And there are people that profit from people staying sick. Of course there are. From being on the ground, I do think that the people that are actually there that are patient facing are not trying to do any harm for the most part. There's always going to be a few outliers, but I think pretty much everyone I've met, everyone in healthcare, they genuinely want to do their best. The problem is sometimes the information isn't there. One of the big problems is to do with the fact that medicine is very much, it's evidence driven, and the way that a well-designed study is made is by having a hell of a lot of money behind it. And actually, if a company doesn't have any financial outcome, why would they bother investing loads of money into it? So say things like with pranayama practices, breathing practices, they have huge potential to help with a whole range of ailments, everything from sort of anxieties, people with respiratory problems, even like different areas of mental health. I think so many areas anyway. But what is the purpose of someone's going to invest in really brilliantly designed research into breath practices? They're probably not going to make a huge amount of money from it, because actually we all have our own lungs and we can just do it.
Yeah.
So I think there's an issue in the fact that, and it's not necessarily right or wrong, because actually, you know, all drug development takes years and so many failures and so much money to make a drug that they really want to max out on what they get. And I do think there is definitely an imbalance, and I do think there is areas of corruption for sure. But all I feel with that is that it's such a big beast and it's so complex that for me, my only focus area can be on working with the people on the ground.
Yeah.
And actually, if we can offer people solutions or methods to optimize their own health and take it into their own hands, rather than constantly relying on an external substance to keep them alive, and really work on how can I, even if I do take medication, how can I do it with understanding, with an aspect of choice? And I think that's where I've focused my energy, because actually when we look at the political system and the pharmaceutical systems, there's a lot of complexities, and actually it can be quite disheartening and quite.
I just want to say, for you, it must be draining and disheartening as well.
Because
you know, you want to operate as a healer, and you know,
and I do think we can all make a difference. I think there's a huge thing to be said for making a change, but all of that has to come from each of us taking responsibility for our own health.
Yeah, totally.
Helping those, like you said, in the areas where they don't have access to good water or healthy food. Yeah. Our jobs can be to try and support them and like try and give people equal opportunity as much as possible. And I mean, it takes time, and it's a messy system. So I try and pour as much of my energy into education, affecting the communities that I can affect. Yeah. And I have so much admiration for the work you do with your activism, because you're putting your neck on the line more so than a lot of people will, and really make big change. And I am so glad there's so many incredible groups of people and networks that are really trying to make institutional changes. Yeah, because that's what it is. Like at the end of the day, that's where you need to start, you know, like from what you just said as well about the root, you know, the root of the problem is where we need to look at. And you were already a pharmacist when you got into Ayurveda, the Ayurvedic courses, and, you know, like how were you drawn to? Because in a way you were saying, like, undercover, there was already an undercover Ayurveda in your life the whole time. Bless your parents. But where would the attraction for Ayurveda come for you? So I trained as a yoga teacher when I was 15. I did a 2-year training course.
Wow. So young.
I was an early adopter.
Yeah.
So, when I think I qualified about 15, 16. Wow. So that was really beautiful. I did that with Dru, with our wonderful company, and I was very honoured to be taught by my amazing auntie and some of my other really beautiful. So it's a family affair. I have all my closest friends and family are also interconnected.
Nice.
So I started with that. So throughout university, even during my pharmacy degree, I was the president of the yoga society, and I was
so sweet.
So throughout my degree, I always kept up very much, you know, I would do my meditation in the morning, even before going on like a night out with all of my friends. I would sit down and I would light a flame. I'd set my intention for the night, then put on my high heels and go dancing, because there's always been, my core self has always been very spiritual.
So nice.
Yeah. And I think it's nice to have that sort of, I'm trying to build a bridge between two worlds at the moment.
Well, I think you are a bridge in many ways. You know, you are the bridge. You don't even have to build it. You are that, you know, and it's a wonderful, you are connecting these different worlds, and because of you, they get to know each other, you know, like that's a wonderful thing. Yeah.
And I think each group's got something to teach the other. So it's been really amazing. And then